Hi folks, welcome to another episode of Allotment Days. It's a rainy day today, so I thought I'd just pop down and have a look inside the greenhouses. And I've had to take some of the big beefsteaks off because they were ripe, bordering on overripe, and I've just taken 8. And you can see by the size of the tomatoes compared with my hand, they're the whoppers. This one must easily be a pound, I would say, or just under. That's an ananas noir, a black pineapple. You can see it's green shoulders, quite red and orange, a little bit greeny at the bottom as well, so that should look quite nice when it's opened up. I might show you when I cut through it so you can see what it looks like. That's an ananas noir. This is a fused radiator Halliday's mortgage lifter. Looks like about 3 tomatoes in one, and that's probably about 2/3 of a pound. These are the Cherokee purple, and there was a cluster of about 6 on the second plant here. And the bottom one, when I lifted it up, it was split all the way around the bottom, and it looked quite dirty. And then I thought, oh well, I can't use that. But I've not had my tea yet, so I thought, well, I'll have a bite off the top, and I ended up eating the whole top half of the tomato. It was absolutely delicious, warm, really sweet. For a beefsteak, that's quite something, because they're not always very sweet. They can be a little bit wet, and that's really, really nice. That's the Cherokee purple, and I've got about 3 of those in there. And this is the Caspian pink. Just, if you can feel them, if they're a little bit soft, there's a bit of give, you know, they're more or less there. Plenty more of those still ripening. I'm going to try that as well. So there we've got 8 tomatoes, probably weighing, I don't know, close to £5 I would say, maybe a bit more. So they're the tomatoes for today. I've just picked a few cucumbers as well, and a few aubergines. So that's it for the greenhouse. We'll take a look around the allotment. Well, looked like the rain was going to stop, but it's sort of continued for about 30-40 minutes or so. I'm still in the greenhouse, but I'm just about to go out now. Still windy, but that shouldn't stop me making a start. I want to try and clean out the strawberry patch, the big strawberry patch. There are lots of runners that need potting on, and weeds as well that need taking out, nettles and what have you. The flowers are looking nice. It's Sunday the 21st of August, and just before I leave the greenhouse, I thought we might just take a look at this tomato plant and just have a word about de-leaving your tomato plants. There are different schools of thought. Some people sort of strip the plants virtually completely of leaves as soon as the tomatoes start to ripen up. If you read some of the main books on tomato cultivation, some of the sort of best known authors generally suggest that you de-leave up to the next ripening truss. If you get the chance, I would suggest that you try and get hold of a copy of Terry Marshall's tomatoes. He's a Yorkshire tomato grower. He lives up in Bingley, I think, and he's got quite a good section in there on how much and how aggressively to remove leaves on your plant. Basically, your leaves are the food factory. They're the plant that produce all the nutrients and sugars that your growing plant needs and your ripening tomatoes need. As this plant starts to put on branches, obviously the leaves at the bottom produce the nutrients that are needed for the developing trusses and branches to come. But as you've got 2 or 3 levels of leaves, the lower leaves cease to be less productive, and you can see with this one in front now, the bottom leaves there they're looking very anemic. You can see between the veins that it's all yellowing. And that's not just because there's a magnesium or calcium deficiency. They're old leaves now. And Terry Marshall has done quite a bit of research into the science of and the biology of the plants. And basically, once your leaves are looking like that, they're virtually unproductive. They might be producing about 5% of their capacity. And the leaves higher up, they take over responsibility for producing nutrients and sugars. So the leaves in the middle will be supplying nutrients to the leaves at the top, and they will, to a certain extent, be supporting the leaves at the bottom. So those leaves at the bottom are actually taking nutrients and goodness out of the plant. So just like side shoots that you don't need, they're counterproductive really, so they need to be removed. As I say, they also produce nutrients for leaves higher up the plant. And at this time of the year, it's getting towards the end of August now. Any time really between, depends on the season obviously, but any time between maybe the second or third week in July and this time in August, you should be stopping your plants. And by that, you're nipping out the top of the plant. Once you reach a point where you think the tomatoes are not going to grow to maturity, they're not going to ripen, that you need to take them out. Sometimes you leave a little bit of growth. You'll see there's a little side shoot that's been left. Sometimes you'll leave it just to provide a little bit more leaf cover if your plant's looking, a little bit stripped of leaf. So those at the bottom there, I'll cut off now. All these plants have been stopped. You can see at the top, you've only got tiny tomatoes. They've been left on. They're big enough to eat, and with a bit of luck they'll ripen. But as I said in the last update, these varieties of beefsteak that I've got in here, they've been good for 2 trusses in most cases, with about 3 or 4 pound of tomatoes on each truss. So that's just a quick look at the leaves. We'll head outside now. Well, the rain eased up enough for me to get outside. It's lovely and warm. It's still very breezy, but I've made a start on the strawberry patch. I've got 2 strawberry patches. One's only tiny, it's about 6 foot by 4 foot. But that small patch generated enough runners to start off a new patch here. These were put in last year, and I think we put about 70 or 80 plants in. There's probably about 7 rows. All these plants are free. They were all runners, and they were first year plants, so we had quite a few strawberries on, but they weren't really heavy cropping, but hopefully there will be next year. And it's that time of the year where you need to thin them out. You need to decide which runners you're going to take for next year, because you should replace your strawberries every 3 years. So it's always best to be safe. Have some in reserve. You'll maybe take a couple of rows out each year and add a couple of rows. But you also lose some plants sometimes in a bad winter. You'll get half a dozen or maybe 10 that might just die back. So you've got replacement plants if you need them. They're also really nice if you've got surplus plants, just to stick them in the greenhouse at the start of the year when you've got space, and they'll crop earlier than the ones outside, so you'll have an early crop of strawberries, so you can't go wrong really. And it's always nice to have a few extra plants to give to friends and neighbours. It's taken me about 3/4 of an hour just to clear along the edge of the path there. I've weeded as I've gone and cut off runners I don't want, but I've taken about 19 plants, 19 runners, as you can see there. And if you look at the soil, you'll see it's very, very friable, and that's because the top 3 inch or so is a broken down, well rotted manure. So I've put a bit of soil and a bit of manure in the plants, and 19, as I say. I might take maybe another 20. So because these were all first year plants this year, we're not going to need to replace too many this year, or next year I should say. If we lose some over winter, we'll have some spare, but we'll have some in the greenhouse cropping early. So I better get onto it, because as you can see, I've a lot to do, and there's more than a day's work here, I think. I might get maybe halfway through today, and then I'll save the rest for another day. So that's the strawberries. Well, it didn't take quite as long as I thought it would, but that's the strawberry bed done. It's taken me 5 hours, but I've managed to thin them out and remove all the nettles and weeds. Had a tidy up, and just in time because it's about to rain again. So that's Sunday over and done with, Sunday the 21st of August. We'll maybe pop back one of the days in the week and we'll complete this update. We'll have to look at something else, but for today that's it, and I'll be back presently, as I say, maybe in a day or two's time. Hi folks, Tuesday the 23rd of August. I've had an early finish from work, so I thought I'd come down and just relax a little bit on the allotment. It's not always about work, is it? So I've just had a cup of tea, had a walk around, swept the paths, and I thought I'd do a bit of picking. So I'm going to turn you around now and I'll show you the peas and the beans. And I've got raspberries at the back of me that have started to come now, and we'll have a nibble and we'll pick a few as well. Alright, so I'll turn you around. And here we are at the top of the bean and the pea bed. There's quite a lot of thistles in there, but didn't want to pick them up, pull them out, because you risk loosening the roots of the pea plants. So here we are with the beans, and you can see that they're coming on now, and if I pull them up, just have a look, you can see there's hundreds of them, and they're all a little bit small, but when you've got so many, you take them when they're a little bit smaller. They're nice and sweet, and of course it means that you're picking continuously and promoting the growth of the other beans as well. So you've not got, like loads in one go. Although having said that, I've barely touched this row, and I've just picked a carrier bag full, and I would say there has to be about 3 or 4, maybe 4 kilograms of beans in there. About 7 or 8 pounds of beans. So as I say, they're coming on really nicely. I'm going to be picking for the next couple of evenings, I think. And then if we just turn over to the left, you can see the peas are almost ready as well. I've just tried one, a full one like that, and they're very, very sweet. They're lovely then. I think these are Kelvedon Wonder, but very, very sweet, and they look really healthy as well, nice and squeaky. And then just turn around and you can see the raspberries are really coming on now. Some really nice juicy red ones, very sweet they are. Only trouble is you've got to be there every day to pick them, because if you don't, the birds get them. So you've got to have your wits about you. Well, those little furry friends, they eat a lot. As you can see, there's one up there. That the birds had a nibble at, and they don't take long. I don't know how they manage to do it, to be honest, when they're right on the end of the branches, but they do. The sweet corn, as you can see, the tassels on the top are getting browner and browner, and I'll be testing some of those before too long, just to see whether or not those top few sweet corn are producing a milky juice when they're squashed, and as soon as they are, they'll be ready. So that's just a quick look at some of the things that I'm harvesting this evening. No work tonight, just a bit of a relax and a bit of picking and nibbling. So I'll maybe catch you later in the week. See you later. Morning again. It's Wednesday the 24th of August, and I've just spent an hour down on the main crop potato bed. I've just made a start digging them up. It's almost 12 o'clock, so I'm going to have a rest. But I've got some. I've got 3 rows of Picasso and 3 rows of King Edwards. Now, the Picasso are a heavy cropper, but I think they're bred from Cara, and they're supposed to mature about a month earlier than Cara, so I'm guessing that's probably early August, and as I say, it's the 24th of August today. I'll show you the ones that I've taken up from the first row. They're big, and they are big Picasso, but if you leave them in too long, then they have a tendency just to split a little bit. There's no exposed potato, but they just split open as they grow. And the other thing is as well, because this is pretty much virgin ground, the longer you leave your potatoes in the ground, the more they are at risk from slugs and cut or wireworm. Because all this ground here was virgin soil. It had been a meadow up until last year, and we took it on, well, just over a year ago. So this is the first crop really that's been in here, probably for, I don't know, maybe 20 years or something like that. And there were lots of nettles and dandelions and dock leaves and you name it, it was all in here. And that's all, you know, like good stuff for cutworms, the little white grubs that eat into your potatoes. They eat the roots basically. So you need to get them up. As you can see, they've died back. Some of them, I'm not certain whether there might be a touch of blight on them, but my cousin's been looking after them and he said he didn't really notice anything. I think it's just natural sort of dieback really. So I've got 3 rows of Picasso, 3 rows of King Edwards, and I've got 2 rows of Charlotte at the top here. So they'll need to come up as well because they've died back as well. But I'll show you the potatoes that I've taken up. But I'll also show you 2 that I took up that show evidence of damage, the kind that I mentioned. And here they are. We've got one here where you can see classic signs of worm entry, cutworm, and on this one you won't believe it, when I opened it up, I think he's moved on now, but there were you see the big hole there, it may still be in there. There was a big whopping slug, and his back end was sticking out the top there, wiggling a slug. And that was the first root on the first row, just down here. There's a big pile of soil now. And the edges of the rows are probably a little bit more vulnerable to slug attack because they're coming from the neighbouring plot, or they get under your slabs on the path. But yeah, that's a big hole, so that's slug damage. And the little ones there, that's cut wire. Oh, sorry, cutworm or wireworm. So in case you see it, that's what it is. We'll have a look at the potatoes that I've dug up now. These are the ones that have to be used straight away because there's a little bit of damage, but the potatoes in pretty good nick otherwise, or else I sliced them with a spade, so they'll get eaten over the next couple of days. And then these are the potatoes that I took out from that first row, and they're just out to dry for an hour, and then they'll get cleaned up and stored. I don't know how many there are in terms of weight, but there's a fair few there. There's probably about half a sack, probably about £30, maybe £30–40, I don't know, something like that. But they're big. As you can see, the standard sort of size. Got pink flecks on them, but lots of big ones, really big ones. The same over here. You can see they're massive. That's a, you know, must easily weigh a pound, that. So there's plenty from the first row, and I've got another 2 rows of those to dig up. I might get up, well, I'm going to go on for my lunch now, but I'll get the rest of those first 3 rows up this afternoon, I think. that is quite hot. So that's it for this morning with the potatoes. I might just show you the Sapo mirror because it's a bit of a shock really. Last year I've still got about 4 pots of Sapo mirror, but last year they were still growing on well into October. That's not the case this year, as we're about to see. And here are the Sapo mirror. You probably remember from an earlier episode I showed you them, might have been about 2 months ago, and they were as high nearly as the gutter there on the greenhouse, about 4'6" high. And I've got 4 plants, and there's been a little bit of rain damage, maybe a little bit of sort of flea beetle, little pock marks, little holes. No blight, although it might look like they're blighted, they're not, they've just died back. It's like a natural dieback, and I don't know whether it's down to the weather or what. But I'd hoped, because I put 4 potatoes in these 45 litre pots, I'd hoped to get, you know, a bumper harvest out of these, maybe £20 per pot, but that's clearly not going to be the case. I might struggle to get £10 because they're all going to be smaller. Because you know what, they're like the Sapo mirror. I had a look at one of Dan's uploads the other day, and he's nearly 5 foot tall. They're still green, and look at them, peaked too early, but not blighted. They've just died back. So I might be maybe in the next update I might be up. Well, they need to be upended really. Certainly the 2 on the end there, because they just sat there in the soil. But yeah, Sapo mirror. I mean, I have heard from a few other people that have got allotments that, you know, generally they're really good, you know, they cope with everything, but every now and then, you know, they do fall prey to something, or that they die back, or they're even blighted. So they're not a wonder potato. They are fantastic, I have to admit, but you know, you can be surprised as well. It won't stop me from growing them. I'll be growing them next year. But yeah, they're the Sapo mirror potatoes. So bit of an early end to the season for those. Hi, I've just returned from lunch and I've made a start on the 2nd row of Picasso, and I just thought I'd show you briefly just how productive they are. That's the hole from the first, what's it, a foot deep and a foot long, and I've taken 1 root out. And they're the potatoes, and there has to be about 6 or 7 pound there. And just so you get the scale again, that's the potato. That potato weighs at least £1, and there's about 5 in there that look about that size. So I'd say there's 6-7 pounds of potatoes from 1 root, and they're all clean as well. 1 or 2 are split. As you can see like that, they open up a little bit as they're growing. But you can't grumble with that, can you? 6 or 7 pound off 1 root. And as you can see, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, about another 9 roots. I think I got about 10 seed potatoes to a row. So it's hot, but the soil's not too bad. It's still quite loose because we had a lot of rain in the last few days. So I'm going to get on with it, and I'll show you the potatoes when I've finished. Alright, catch you later. Well, that's it for potato picking today. I'm absolutely baking, and the sun's getting the better of me. I think if I don't stop soon, I'll be badly burned. I've just finished the 3rd row of Picasso, and there they are, the potatoes. Mostly big ones, as you can see. I might weigh them, but I'm not minded to at the minute. I'm out of breath. But I wouldn't like to say how much there is there in terms of weight, but if you hazarded a guess, I'd say there must be, I don't know, about 70 pound maybe, 70, 80 pounds, something like that. Certainly a sack that will be too heavy to pick up. And if you look at some of these, look at this one. Now then, how much do you think that weighs? That is an absolute monster. It weighs as heavy, feels as heavy as a 2 pound bag of sugar. So I might weigh that one, because I don't think it'll be far off a kilogram. But they're all big. But as I say, some of them have started to split as they've grown, as they reach a certain size. So this is the 24th of August, and they probably could have done with taking up maybe a week, 10 days, even 2 weeks earlier. I'm still going to have to sort through them because there's an odd wormhole and they'll get used straight away. But that's not bad, is it? 3 rows of Picasso, 10 seed potatoes in each row. I think it was just one bag of seed potatoes, which cost me, if I remember correctly, about £2 I think they were, from a local garden centre. 30 seed potatoes produced probably about £70 or £80 of potatoes, all for £2, because they've gone in the ground. And if I remember correctly, when I planted them, I put a layer of fish blood and bone. Actually, I put the seed potato in first, then a layer of fish blood and bone, half backfilled, and then put a layer of chicken manure pellets, and then mounded them up. So I don't know, it's probably cost £1, if that, for chicken manure and fish blood and bone, plus £2 for the seed potatoes. So £70 or £80 for £3 sterling. That's not bad, is it? Just let these dry off a bit and then they'll get stored. That's it for the taters. I'll just show you briefly where I've put my potatoes. They're in the big stable, and I've got one part of this now sorted, and I've been storing the onions in here and the potatoes. It's a bit dark, but I think you can see I've got my onions all tied up on the wall there. I can't take credit for the onions this year. Well, I can for the onions, but not for tying them up, because my cousin tied them up while I was on holiday. But that's where they are. A few down there as well on the wall. You can't see them, it's a bit dark. And the shallots are still drying off under the potato sacks there. Shallots there, and then I've got the Picasso potatoes up there, and on the table here, and the ones that were a bit flea bitten, they're in a bucket down there. And the Picasso potatoes that I've just shown you, I brought them all over in buckets, and I brought 6 buckets, and they were heaped up buckets. And I've not weighed a bucket, but I suspect each bucket weighed about £20, so I think the yield was higher than I suggested, because I said there were probably about £70 or £80. I think it's probably more like 110 to 120. Sorry, I have to excuse the door slamming behind me, it's quite windy. So yeah, about 110, 120 pounds of Picasso, because as you can see, they're all massive potatoes, they're not little ones, and they're all big. So each spud there's the best part of £1 in weight. Store my little pots in here as well. I've not shown you the shed before, and it extends right up over the back, and I've still got to block in the old door there at the back where the horse used to come in, but I'm going to use this to store wood and bits and bobs. I might put some flooring in it as well at some point, because it's such a big space. It's about 18-20 foot long, the stable, and about, I would say, about 9 foot wide, 9-10 foot wide. So it's a very, very useful space to have. And I've got my trestle tables in here that I had in the greenhouse. I've just got hold of some Hessian sacks, and I'm about to bag up my potatoes, because they've been drying in here overnight. Right, so that's it for the shed. I Well, I've finished with the potatoes for today, and I'm just having a sit down and a drink in the shade. I just wanted to mention that I took one of the large tomatoes home, I think it was last night or the night before, and I weighed it and I cut it as well, just to show you what it looked like. It was a black pineapple beefsteak tomato, ananas noir, that my sister-in-law brought back from the States. I've also preserved some of the dwarf French beans, the Stanley beans. I've been doing it over the last few nights. You've seen I've been picking beans. And I've taken a few to eat, you know, for a meal or two. But I've preserved about 13, I think it's about 12 or 13 jars. And I'll show you those as well, because I've taken a clip of that and that's going to come next. Alright, so I think I've done with filming. There's a few bits to add on. But I'll catch you later. I mentioned earlier that I might pop this potato on the scales, and here it is. That's the large one I showed you earlier on, and I said it was roughly the weight of the bag of sugar, and if you can see the reading there on the scales, £2 and 3/8 of an ounce, so I wasn't far out in my guess. So that's Picasso potato. It's an ugly one, but enough to feed a family. I've just taken a look at the large ananas noir tomato that I took off this morning. You can see it's quite a large tomato. It's green on the top, orange and red, and then streaked red at the bottom. It's a really pretty tomato. I'm just going to pop it on the scale so we can see how much it weighs. Just turn it on. And it weighs 15 3/4 ounce, so it's as near as, damn it, a pound. I'll get a knife now and we'll take a look at the inside, because I think it might be a little bit marbled. So we'll take a quick look. And there it is, sliced ananas noir, the black pineapple tomato. It's what you call a multilocular tomato. It's got about 7 or 8 seed chambers or cavities, and it's really colourful inside. You can see the red skin on the outside, and it's a mixture of green, yellow and red in the middle. It's a really pretty tomato, and I'll let you know what it tasted like the next time I speak to you. Okay, well that's it, ananas noir. And here are the dwarf beans that I preserved last night and the night before. I said I'd show you them earlier today, and I've got about 13 jars there of varying sizes, between 850 millilitres and 1.5 litres, and these ones here, they're a litre, and there's enough beans in there to do a meal for 4 people. And I'm married and got 2 kids, so one of those jars is a meal. I did about 20 jars last year, and I'm hoping to do closer to 40 this year, and I've got some more jars up there ready and some there. And this is in my garage at home. Lots of jam down there to go at, and some more preserves down here, beetroot, tomatoes, plums and onions, using the same method. They're placed in a water bath, heated for the prescribed amount of time and temperature, and then they're vacuum sealed, because the atmospheric pressure is higher than it is inside the jar, so it keeps the lid on with no attachments or anything. It's just pressure. So there they are, the beans. This is the water bath that I bought in Germany last year. It's a Vec Einkochtopf, and you can put your beans in there or whatever else you want to preserve. You can also put jam in as well. You make your jam as normal, and then you just pop it in for 10 minutes at 90 degrees and it vacuum seals your jam, so you never have to worry about your jam going off or going mouldy after about a year or 18 months. So if you have a glut of a particular fruit, you can make as many jars as you want, confident that they're going to last for years if need be. You pop them inside, pop the lid on, set the thermostat to the right temperature, and away you go. So that's how I do mine. I'm not going to show you the process, I'll just show you the equipment. Hi again, it's Wednesday evening, the 24th, and I've had a full day on the allotment. It's been a hot day, and I just thought I'd have a little walk down the lane from where my 4 plots are, and you can see them up there. They start where the 2 compost bins are, and you can see the flowers there and the sunflowers on the second allotment and the stable up at the top. But down at the bottom of the lane there's a walkway, as is often the case. There's a walkway all the way around all the allotments and the paddocks, because it's a mixed paddock and allotment site. Around the bottom of the lane that leads to my plots are lots of blackberries. Look at them. There's millions of them, absolutely millions, and they're the big sort of cultivated type, and they stretch all the way around, down the lane, round all the trees. They're actually growing up into the trees. I don't know if you can see them. They're actually climbing the trees. Can't get to those ones at the top, but there's no need. So if I show you the ones here, look at these beauties. How fabulous are they? Look at them. And they're ripening up. I've just tried a few. They're a little bit tart still, but they're not far off. So and they're covered, absolutely covered. A few more hot days and I'll be down here with some bowls. I think last year I took about 10 or 15 pound off and made about 20 jars of blackberry jam and blackberry and apple jam, and I'll be doing that again, I think, before the week's out. So, and if we turn to the left, guess what? There's even more of them all the way down the other side of the lane. So the allotment holders on this site have got sort of easy and ready access to pounds and pounds and pounds of lovely blackberries. So I'm going to call it a day now, and that's it for this update. Thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and I'll see you again soon. Take care.